Hi, I'm Euge Valovirta, and this video is about the differences between overdrive, distortion and boost pedals and how to use them in different situations. So, yes, indeed, I've gotten several questions that what I recommend how to use overdrive, distortion and boost pedals. I mean, I think there's no right or wrong way where you put them in your signal chain, but few basic rules. And in some occasions they just sound better in some other place than, and so on. But anyway, let's go through some examples and you will hear by yourself how they sound in a different positions on your signal chain. So let's go through the gear I'm using. I have the Tokai TST 50 something Strat with the passive vintage style Seymour Duncan pickups. Then I have the Overdrive. In question is a JHS Bonsai. There's basically quite several overdrives. They're not like emulation, they're actually the real parts in there. So this is really cool. And I chosen the classic TS 808, the Tube Screamer 808 as an overdrive. And what is overdrive? Well, the name as the name suggests, it overdrives something. So it makes your amp hotter. It overdrives usually the preamp section of the amp. Okay, so it doesn't create distortion on its own, maybe a little gain, but the idea is you overdrive something into distortion or a more overdriven sound. And basically you put this always in front of your amp. That's the whole idea. Okay, then a distortion. In this case it's Friedman BEOD. The name is OD, but it's distortion. Well, I guess you can use this as an overdrive too. But this is kind of like your amp-like preamp style pedal. So this creates distortion on its own. So you can put this into a clean amp and then you have a distorted sound. So basically if you have a clean amp and then you hook this, then you have like 2-channel amp. And since this has it's very transparent with a lot of controls, so this is actually also a preamp, so you can hook this into your power amp section also. So you forget all the preamp section and you put this in your amplifier's power amp. And how you do that is by you just plug this or a cable and this into effect loops return, so that it goes directly into the power amp. And effects loop is like, the name is a little bit, can be misleading, so it doesn't mean that you put all your effects in there. It's just a place between your amplifier's preamp and power amp section, and you can put certain effects there because they work better there than in front of an amp. Some work just as good before the preamp section, aka in front of an amp, or in between the preamp and power amp section. Like chorus, it's more aggressive in front of an amp, but if you put it in the effect loop after the preamp, before power amp, it's much smoother and nicer. So you just gotta try and test how you feel, what is the what you like the most. Same with delay, it's very aggressive in front of an amp, but with an effect loop it creates this nice open delay sound when using distortion. With clean it works great in front of an amp, but let's get back to that delay and modulation pedals on some other video. Okay, overdrive, distortion, boost. Boost is, I mean, you can use overdrive as a boost. You just turn the drive or gain down and then it boosts. So this is a Wampler dB Plus booster, so it's like a, again, transparent booster, so it boosts everything, or the whole frequency range, so it's transparent. Whereas usually overdrives, and especially a tube screamer style, it boosts the mid-range, and depending how much you add the tone, also the high end. And what it does simultaneously, it cuts the low end, so it makes the sound tighter. That's what it's so commonly used in metal and rock, to tighten up the sound, like the way I use super overdrive, which is just another take of the tube screamer circuit, a little bit different, I think, whatever. But basically what it does, it boosts the mid-range, so the amp gets a mid-boosted sound, so it will start to distort on the mid frequencies and will leave the bass untouched, or maybe even cut it a bit, depending on the overdrive. So that's why you get that really in your face tight metal tone, because the mid frequencies are being overdriven, aka they go into distortion. Okay, so enough talking, let's go. Move forward. The amp I have now is a Friet SIGEX. Why I chose this amp is because you can do everything from crystal clean to searingly metal chug overdrive heavy tones, and it has a lot of headroom, so it takes pedals really well. Okay, so the clean sound with the Strat is like this. So it's totally clean. And I just have the ISP here to get rid of the small hiss what these pedals will create soon. Okay, then let's engage the overdrive. So the signal is guitar here, and then it goes to the input. So there's nothing in the effect loop. And the clean channel is what's being used now, as you heard, with an overdrive. So you heard it, it boosts the mid-range, makes the sound like a bit honky, and when you hit hard it will actually distort a bit. I have very little distortion now, as you can hopefully see on the settings. So the volume is like 1 o'clock, the drive is like 9 now, the tone is in the middle, so it's not. Let me show you what the tone knob does. So it starts to overdrive the higher frequencies too. So you get that really aggressive, and then when it's all the way down. Like that. So this overdrives the clean channel into an overdrive. Okay? What the distortion does? Well, it creates the distorted heavy sound on its own, so you don't need to distorted amp. So, let me demonstrate. Like that. So again, a clean channel, but now the distortion is included. And what happens when I include the overdrive? So that the overdrive, now it overdrives the distortion pedal. So it does the same what it did to the, well, what it does, it boosts the mid frequencies to make the sound more in your face. And obviously with these settings, because I have a little bit drive in there, so it adds its own overdrive, distortion in there, whatever you may want to call it. But then you can also use this as a boost. So volume full, drive 0. You hear the difference? So if you use a tube screamer type pedal as a boost, then it will again just boost the mid frequencies, and in a way it also creates a little bit more distortion. And then when you add the drive, so it adds the overdrive's own distortion / overdrive into the sound, which is what I like to do. I like to have two gain stages, whether I'm using a preamp pedal, distortion pedal, or a distorted amp. And when I play metal, I use EMG active pickups. So active, there's a preamp, there's a battery, so I basically have 3 gain stages. The first gain stage is the pickups, second is the overdrive, and the third is the amp-like distortion preamp pedal or amps preamp. Okay, let's move forward. I'm gonna, hopefully you're following me. Now let's turn these off and let's see what the boost does. So in this case, it's a transparent boost, so it boosts everything. Without and with. So this is something that some people use, that they have it on all the time. Like you heard, it just adds something. It just boosts everything. So, and then there's a buffer on this one, so if you have long cables, that's handy. Maybe you heard it. I mean, now I have quite short cables, so there's not that much different. But if you have really long cables, like I use the Wampler as a buffer live, because I have really long cables with Syra, so that's the buffer is always on, and I use it as a solo boost, because this is basically the way I create my sound in Syra. I don't use amplifier, or if I use amplifier's clean channel. So the overdrive, amp-like pedal, and the boost. And let's switch into overdrive. Okay, so it matters whether you have the boost after the preamp or before. So this is like our preamp now. Okay, so if it's before, it adds a gain, because it boosts the preamp pedal or amplifies preamp, so it goes into overdrive, and it starts to compress. So if it's after, let's add a little bit of more noise gate. If it's after, so it doesn't boost this, but it boosts the signal afterwards. So that way it makes it louder. So you can use it as a solo boost, like I use live. If this would be here, it would just add gain. It would boost everything, but since this is transparent, it would probably would make, or I know it, at least to my taste, it would make this little or the sound in general too bassy, to everything. Well, that's why I like to use a tube screamer style overdrive, because it pushes the mids nicely, and then a transparent boost after the preamp section, so it boosts the volume and acts as like a lead channel. Okay, cool. And now what we're gonna do, because now we're basically, this is the setup if you would use a clean amp, or if you would go directly into let's say a New Neighbor Iconoclast speaker emulator, what I use. So all of this goes into that, and then it goes into PA. So basically this is the preamp after everything after the preamp and before the New Neighbor, or before this amplifier. It's kind of an effect loop. So if you would add delay here, you would put it, if you would like to have a smooth, good sounding delay, you will put it after the preamp section, so after the overdrives. And if you would like to have really distinctive, like rhythmic delay, you would put it before, so that way the delay would drive the preamp. Cool. Okay. Okay. Everything is off. Now let's switch into the overdrive channel of the SIGEX. So the sound now, just the overdrive channel. That riff is, by the way, Mr. Big's My Kind of Woman from Lean Into It, great album, and Paul Gilbert is amazing. Okay, so now we are using amps overdrive channel. This is the way like I use with let's say Marshall JCM 800s. if I want to boost them, or this amplifier. So I dial in this kind of rock sound, and then what I do is when I want it to go more metal, more overdriven, I overdrive it with an overdrive pedal. So the signal goes from guitar to here, and from here it goes to the preamp section. In this case, the overdrive channel's preamp section. So it hits it really hard, and since it's mid boosted, the mids will overdrive, go into distortion, but the low end will remain tight and focused because it's not driving that. Okay? And you can use this like as a booster, so there's no drive coming from here. Or like the way I want to use it, I just back the volume a bit and then lift the gain a bit. Usually add some little bit high end. Like that. Okay. Now, cool. What would happen if we put a distortion amp-like preamp pedal into already distorted amp? Well, this is what will happen. So you have a lot of distortion and everything. Okay, you can use this also as an overdrive. Just turn the gain down. But now you have basically two preamps going, so it's... And the sound is full, but there's a bit too much going on, because now you have... Because this is like, you know, there's more frequencies than just the mid frequencies. So that's maybe some people do that. I don't really like that. It's a bit too much for my taste. But yeah. And what will happen if we boost the rock distorted sound with the transparent booster? So it boosts again everything. To me, it makes it sound a little bit not so tight, not so articulate. So that's why myself and many people favor tube screamer style overdrives. And tube screamer style overdrives means that it boosts the mids, because there's other types of overdrives like clone. I think that boosts a little bit everything and so on, but these are very used in rock and metal and in blues and everywhere for a reason, because they boost the mid-range, so you get this nice body to your sound. Okay, and now what will happen if I have a overdrive on? So now this preamp section of the amp, the rhythm channel acts as the Friedman, when we use the clean section. So what will happen now when I engage the boost? Will it boost the volume? No, because it's before the preamp and not after, like with the pedal. It will just boost the amp's channel into more overdrive. So, how do you use the boost pedal as a volume boost if you're using a amp's overdrive channel? So like I showed you, it boosts the volume if you use the clean channel, and if you use a pedal that's before the booster as an overdrive channel. Hopefully you're following. But now since the overdrive, the preamp section of our signal chain is after this, it won't boost the volume. But if we want it to boost the volume, we need to put it after the preamp section. And what is after the preamp section in an amplifier? Effect loop. So effect loop is the place after your amplifier's preamp section and before the power amp section. Okay, let's switch into this into loop. The sound. Now it boosts the volume because it's after the preamp and before the power amp section. So that's how basically you can make your 2-channel amp into 3-channel amp, or your clean amp if you have just one clean channel. If you use a distorted preamp like distortion pedal, you can use that as your overdrive channel, and then you just, can be here, not in the effect loop after the preamp, so you can have it as a solo boost. And yeah, and what will happen if you will put a, I don't know why someone would do that, but if you put a overdrive or distortion into effect loop? Well, actually with amp like distortion, that's actually a very quite sometimes common thing to do, because then you are bypassing the amplifier's preamp and use this preamp like pedal as a preamp. You connect that directly into the power amp, so it just powers, amplifiers this sound, makes it audible. Let's actually do that also. So what we're gonna do, bypass, standby, and we remove the cable from the input and we put it in the effect loop's return, so that it goes directly into the amplifier's power amp. Let's remove these. And let's put this back into the signal chain. Like that. Cool. So now the signal: guitar, overdrive, distortion, preamp, amp-like pedal, boost, noise reduction, and directly to the amplifier's power amp section, aka effect loop's return. And the sound is, see here it's very dull because there's no preamp now involved. This is all, nothing happens. Only control that works are a presence, because presence usually is controls the high end of the power amp section. And the depth, it controls the low end of the power amp section. Usually presence and depth or resonance controls, they affect the amplifier's power amp section, and all the treble, middle, bass, usual gain, they operate in the preamp section of the amplifier. Okay, and the master volume is usually the master volume of the power amp section. This doesn't have a master volume here because these all volumes are like channel based, but there's a master volume behind where you can control the all, or it's actually the effect loops volume, but well, anyway, let's not get into that. Very dull sound. Let's add the distortion amp light pedal. Even duller. Why is it that? Didn't touch any of the settings, it sounds like shit. Well, because there's no this amplifier's preamp section included. So this is now the only thing. So now we need to tweak the sound, and maybe you can see the green dots what I have, because I usually use this with Syra with this setup, so I don't have this is my only preamp. Ooh, voila, it starts to work. So, it really depends where the pedal is in your signal chain. You have to, so if you see a picture of, let's say, my settings, if you use it in front of the amp, it will probably sound like shit. But if you use it with just like a amp speaker simulator or directly into power amp, it will probably sound fine. So have to use your ear. Okay, that's pretty okay. And then let's add the overdrive. Cool, and the boost. Cool. So now you can basically have your sound with basically whatever amp if it has an effect loop. Obviously the power tubes affect sound a bit. This has KT88s. So if this would have a EL34 or 606s in the power amp section, it would probably sound would sound a bit different. Okay, so yeah, but what happens if you put just an overdrive, and in this case a tube screamer style overdrive which boosts the mids? What happens if you boost that, put that into an effect loop? So what will it will do? It's so basically what you're doing, you're feeding mid frequencies into the power amp, and it sounds like shit. Okay, and then one more example. Now we're going into the amplifier preamp section. Again, let's use the overdrive channel, and then we put all of these into effect loop. So now we have very interesting setup, and I don't know if anybody has tried this, but I don't think no one uses this because I can tell you that it sounds like shit. So the signal goes to guitar, to the preamp section of the amp, and then before it reaches the power amp section, we have these in the effects loop. So the overdrive is after the preamp. So we have a great sounding preamp sound, And then if we add overdrive, which is focused on mids, so it basically cuts everything from the preamp, and it sounds like this. So it lets only pass the mid frequencies, and so don't put overdrive into the effect loop. If you want to sound like shit, then do that. But as the name suggests, overdrive overdrives something, and it should overdrive preamps, not power amp. And let's see what the distortion. Again, sounds like shit, because we have a overdriven preamp, and then it's afterwards is, well, basically it sounds like shit. So, quick recap. Rules of thumb, if you will. Overdrive in front of the amp, in front of the preamp to overdrive the amplifier. Distortion or amp-like, preamp-like pedal could be used before the amp's preamp if you're using a clean channel, or let's say moderate distortion, or if you turn the gain really quite low on here or whatever. But you can use that. But I think if you want to have the full potential, at least this pedal, it works best, like you heard, when you put it in front of the clean channel. Boost, you can use both. If it's after the preamp, like this, or in case of amplifier in the effect loop, it will boost the volume. If it's before, so it will be here, or before the preamp, it will just overdrive it. Cool. And like you hear, what happens when you boost it, put everything in the loop, and use also the amplifier's preamp. But a good way is to put it here and then to the amplifier's effect loop's return, so that it bypasses the preamp section of the amp and uses the power amp section, so it's only powering these pedals, makes them audible. You can control the sounds a little bit, because the presence and depth/resonance controls in most amplifiers operates in the power amp section. Okay, hopefully I managed to explain this. Quite simple, but maybe not so simple thing to you. And yeah, if you have any questions, comments, please put them on the description below. And all I can say that is sometimes, I mean, a shit sound could be just a sound, let's say, in a studio you're looking for. So there's no right or wrong way. Some ways just sound better or good or great, and some ways, like I showed you, sound just like shite. Hey, until next time, take care.